Is everybody in?
I'm getting no sound.
I can hear you fine.
Ugh.
Are we live yet?
Yes, we are now just this instant going live, and welcome to our work session to discuss
Not
our,
getting any sound. Great.
is everybody else getting sound? Okay, okay. I'm not sure what to do for Miss Hughes, for Alderman Hughes. Hopefully that will correct itself. So the first thing I thought I would do is recognize Mr. Shelton to begin discussion of the budget. Robert.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. As was requested during your retreat, the staff wanted to provide more ample opportunity for feedback and input from the board prior to your actual public hearing and introduction and first reading, which will take place November 22nd. So again, as you all know, we've had some opportunity to review. Joanne's gone through some general. We've distributed some more detailed information. Joanne will go into a little bit more depth today of where we stand on the budget, the recommendation of Ways and Means, and then obviously any feedback or any input you all have, we welcome. Leading up to November 22nd, feel free to ask any questions. I appreciate everybody's feedback thus far, especially Joanne and all the work she's put into this budget, being the newbie, and all of the staff who has provided valuable work and input on this. So with that, Mayor, if it's okay with you, I'd turn it over to Joanne.
Sounds great. Go ahead, Joanne.
Okay. Can everybody see my screen? Okay. So this is the 22 recommended budget, and the first slide I want to show you is all the funds together with the beginning fund balance, revenues, estimates, etc., so that you can see the ending fund balance. This will display an ending fund balance for the general fund of 53%, and that does not include the ARPA funds. The ARPA funds are the American Rescue Plan Act funds from the federal government. We have received $1.1 million already in the current year, and we will be receiving another $1.1 million in 2022. So you will see the ending fund balance right now is $2.2 million because there's not anything budgeted for those funds yet. The next slide is the 2021 end of year budget summary, and this shows you where the beginning fund balance is at the end of 2020, beginning of year 2021, and then it shows the revenue estimates, those projections that you've seen in the information that was shared with you. The budget expense or the estimated expenditures for 2021, and then of course the changes in fund balance. The 2022 revenue estimates of total are exceeding the 2021 estimates by about $90,000. Thankfully, as we're returning, we're expecting to receive over 12%. Returning from the pandemic, we're receiving about 12% more in our sales tax revenues from the 2021 budget, and then from the 2021 estimates, it's a 3% increase to the 2022 budget for the sales tax revenues. In addition, the 2022 expenditures are budgeted at about $130,000. I'm sorry, $110,000 less than the prior year estimates, and about $850,000 less than the 2021 budget. Details regarding this will be shared a bit later in the presentation. So I think Mr. Shelton already mentioned this, but the Ways and Means Commission met on the 2022 recommended budget on November 3rd. And they recommended approval of the budget as submitted with one modification, and that was change to the merit salary pool increase. We had 1% in the budget. They recommended a 3%. So that, including salary and benefits, is about $116,500. And of course, less than 100,000 of that is general fund. And then, of course, the public hearing and first reading of the budget is November 22nd. And then finally, the second reading and finalization is December 13th. So I think you've seen this before last year when the budget was presented to you, for those of you who were here for the 2021 budget. And you can see from this pie chart that sales tax revenue is 49% of the entire revenues for the city. That's is a tremendous amount compared to some of the other cities I've seen. Normally, there's not such a reliance on one source of revenue. So sales tax 49%. The next one is licenses and permits, and that's 15%. And then the utility taxes is 12%. The 10% grants and contributions is due to the ARPA money, that 1.1 million, as well as the Drace Park grant. Okay. My slides are getting a little wound, a little crazy here, so I want to know what screen you're seeing. Are you seeing the revenue sheet or the expenditure sheet?
The total recommended expenditure budget, all funds, is what's come up on mine.
Okay.
Hey, Joanne, this is Bob. I hate to interrupt, but I think maybe it's showing the next slide, and I don't know enough on PowerPoint on what to click. But it seems to be showing two slides. I'm wondering if there's something you can click on.
Right, I don't know because my notes are wonky and I'm not.
Right.
So yourself on that.
I mean, we're seeing your previous slide on the left part of my screen, and the next slide, or the present one, which is about twice as big, in the middle of the screen.
Yes, I don't know how to.
You know, we'll survive.
Yeah, it might just be the way it's set up.
Now are you seeing full size slide?
Yes, except that it's sort of like half of it.
Right, right.
I don't know if it's because it's split screen and I've got two screens. I've never had dual screens on. I'm so sorry, you guys. This is embarrassing.
No problem. Don't worry about it.
That's what I just did.
I think it's telling us to cut the budget. Oh, there it is.
There we go.
There you go.
Now we're good.
Is it good?
Yeah, that's good.
Very good.
No, just click.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so the license and permits, that covers items including the building permits, the liquor licenses, the video franchise fees, and the telecommunication fees. Business licenses are down as 36% of the receipts for square footage are delinquent, and that's just 3 businesses. We also have a situation where some of the businesses with the larger square footage or who used to pay for larger pieces of square footage no longer are in the city of Town and Country. So that makes up for that other part where we're low. On the utility gross receipts taxes, these are for non-residential gross receipts. In the 1980s, there was actually a residential utility gross receipts tax that the city collected from our residents of 5% on certain utilities such as gas. But as you know, the utility gross receipts taxes since the 90s has been just non-residential.
Right.
So this slide is the 2022 expenditures, all funds of $15.8 million. You can see that the largest piece here is the fire and ambulance at 27%, and then parks and trails at 11%. So my goal with the next couple of slides is to talk to you in more detail about the revenues and how they have fluctuated over the past few years and where we think they will be for 2022. So the first category is the intergovernmental taxes, which of course are the sales taxes. And you can see that the very top line is the retail sales. And it looks like we'll be in very good shape for the 2022 budget for the retail sales for the 1% to be in line with, actually ahead of 2019 actual revenues, which is great to see. The other item, the local option, is lower, and I'm not able to figure out why that is right now, but I have contacted St. Louis County to see if they can help me figure out why that one has fallen down a bit. The next category I already mentioned, the gross receipts taxes. A part of the reason I think that we're still behind on gross receipts taxes are the fact that people are still, some people are still working from home, and some of the larger businesses are trying to figure out how they can allow their employees to continue working from home. And I understand that more and more are returning to work, but there are still a number of people who are still working from home. I don't know if any of you have experienced that, but that's my understanding and what I have heard from a number of sources. The next group is zoning permits and business licenses. The building permits appear to be lagging from some of the prior year numbers from the value. And I think it's, we don't have in our 2022 budget a large entity that's going to be taking out any building permits. So while we have a lot of residential properties taking out building permits, we don't have any large ones right now. We've heard that somebody might be building on or putting on an addition to their commercial site, but we don't have any additional information, and I didn't feel comfortable bumping up a revenue number that I'm not confident in expanding on it, or not knowing for sure whether it's going to happen or not. The next area, business licenses, that's what I previously mentioned. I believe that the one where we are behind is, of course, the square footage. With gross receipts, we're in good shape on that, as well as the business license with a flat fee. This next group, other licenses and permits. You will recall that the board decided that for some of the liquor licenses, we would not charge businesses in 2021. So that's why the estimated number is low. For 2022, we expect all of the businesses who had gotten permits in 2021 to come to get their permits in 2022. And we actually have a couple more, First Watch and a few other businesses who have recently gotten business licenses. And of course, other businesses will be getting those for 2022. The charges for services and rental income, the only one that I wanted to bring up in this category is the inspection fees. I said that incorrectly. The rental income is the one I meant to bring up. The rental income includes the rent paid quarterly by West County EMS and Fire for the use of the fire station. On this slide, I wanted to just mention that, of course, the grants and contributions are not as high as they were in 2020. In 2020, that is where the CARES Act funding was. The American Recovery Act fund money, the ARPA money that I was mentioning earlier of the 1.1 million, we put that in a separate fund because we felt like it would be easier than to see the money and then see where it actually is being spent. So this is just a slide to show you the sales tax revenue trends, and you can see that we're, again, in really good shape with the 2022 budget. And here's just a line graph to show that as well. So for the general fund, the budget summary on the use of funds, I put this together so that you could see we don't have that many changes. You can see that the percentage increase from the 2021 estimate versus 2022 is less than 2% in total. And I'll go through some of the differences in just a moment. So we do have a public works director who started this year. And so in 2022, it'll be a full year of salary and benefits and pension that will be in the budget for him. We also have insurance increases. The property insurance increased quite a bit, 13.5%. In addition, our general police and auto liability, that was less than 2%, and then workers' compensation. In the training categories, we're returning to more in-person meetings, which means then that there's also other costs associated with that, travel costs, not just registration for the virtual meetings. And another item, if you look in the audit column in our budget, you'll notice that in 2022, the costs for our audit will just be $19,000. And that is the normal, the annual audit from our auditing firm, Showalter & Jabori. But for 2021, we had a couple of different items. One was management partners, in addition to the regular audit. And then we also had the state petition audit. And the estimate for that is around $130,000. So I have that plugged into the 2021 estimate.
So you plan to accrue for that? If it's
Yes.
not paid out by the end of the year?
Yes. And then we also have an increase for litigation costs. We don't, we're hoping not to have any, but we just want to plan ahead and make sure that we have some money in the budget in case that happens. And then finally, in 2021, we had more costs with police overtime. Some of that had to do with, a lot of it had to go with COVID, and there were also other expenditures with injuries that were tied to workers' compensation coverage. There are other items, of course, that are in the 2022 budget. The fire and ambulance costs, as you recall, that's about 40% of the general fund budget. And one of the items that is not in the 2022 budget is the branch chipping. I know that it had been in the development or public works budget in the general fund for some years, but it's not in this year, and I don't believe it was in last year.
Right.
So on to the road fund. In order for the road fund would have a negative balance, so of course we need a transfer of $131,000 from the capital fund in order for it to balance to zero at the end of 2022. In the road fund, it includes the Topping Road project overlay, which should be completed in 2022. Topping Road Trail and stormwater costs are also in, I'm sorry, they're not in here. They're actually in the Parks and Stormwater Fund. We also have $16,000, which is for the conceptual plan for the Bop Road curb and resurfacing. Also in this fund include $300,000 for road sealing, $35,000 for deer management, and $31,000 for dead tree removal. Other items in the road fund are $191,000 for snow removal, de-icing, salt, and calcium chloride. This number is a lot higher than it was in the 2021 budget, and this has to do with just the increasing costs of these services as well as the actual product cost. Another item in here is the city beautification grants. You may recall that grants are $5,000 each, and there was a maximum of $25,000. There was only one submittal, and with the 50-50 split, it was $1,022. So that's why that number is as it is in the budget. Other items for road fund include the crack sealing of city streets, $32,000, and citywide pavement markings of $55,000. So for the capital fund, we have expenditures of $1.2 million. A transfer would be needed from the capital fund to the road fund, as I previously mentioned. Projects and programs in 2022 would be the upgrade to citywide IT infrastructure, which will be discussed in a moment, and then the conference room updates of $60,000.
Joanne?
Yes.
Hi, Sue here. Could I just jump in just to clarify the dead tree removal? That was for right-of-way areas only, correct?
Correct.
Correct, right-of-way, and then the crack sealing was for Ward 4, correct?
I believe that's correct. It's Ward 4 this year.
Okay, thank you.
I think the other item I have on the slide is to continue the police vehicle replacement schedule. So in the budget, the citywide IT upgrade it shows $170,000, but $20,000 of that is items, for example, replacement of desktop computers and things like that. So the big bite or the big piece of this truly is $150,000, and it includes a number of things. On this slide is pretty descriptive of those particular items that we need, but particularly the service and migration of all applications and data, those will be replaced. Also hosting of the servers in a hybrid cloud environment. We also very much need to upgrade our firewalls at City Hall, Longview, and the firehouse. And then, of course, we do a conversion of our Microsoft applications to cloud-based 365 so that we can be fully integrated with that. And then finally, transitioning from an on-premise to 2003 Exchange email server to Microsoft 365 cloud services. All of this is extremely exciting to me. I don't know about the rest of the staff, but we certainly need some upgrades here. So with the capital fund, we have various items, including the ground care contract, the custodial services contract, and then I have the, I'm so sorry, I just went too fast. A project or program that was deferred to after 2022, and it's in the CIP budget or the capital improvement program, is the Public Works Maintenance Facility. And it's in the CIP sheets, which are further into the presentation. So for the Parks and Stormwater Fund, there are a number of projects in here. One is the Longview Trail Overlay, Farmhouse Tuck Pointing, and Paver Resetting. Drace Trail Overlay and Sealing, as well as the replacement of the Drace Playground, which is, of course, the grant funded project. The Mason Road Trail Phase 1, which is the county project. And then the replacement of the dead trees at Town Square and the trail, and then stormwater projects of about $1 million. So these are 3 of the programs that are included right now in the 2022 proposed budget: Fire and Ice, the Town Square Summer Concerts, and the Turkey Trot. And then these are the actual stormwater projects that are currently budgeted for fiscal year 2022. You can see the smallest project is, of course, the cost benefit analysis. And the largest piece, of course, is the Laurel Lakes Estates construction of $750,000. I'm going to go over this slide just very quickly. This is just the other funds that we have. Of course, the one I mentioned before at the very bottom, the American Recovery Act Fund, is of course in a separate fund. So this is the 5-year capital expenditure plan. This is the first slide is the road fund, and you can see the various items that we have in here, including the road sealing, Topping Road, Clayton, et cetera, et cetera. This next slide is the capital expenditure fund. That's the capital improvement. It just includes the capital improvement funds here. And so you can see that one of the vehicles there's one vehicle replacement in 2022, and I believe that's in development. We also have maintenance of the Public Works facility of $20,000. Police department vehicles of $146,000. And then the West County EMS capital in the contract down below is $173,896. This is the Parks and Trails, and you can see this has playgrounds for Drace, Longview, and Preservation Parks split from or established from 2022, 2023, and 2024. As you know, the only one right now that we're aware of and we have funding for is, of course, the Drury's Park Playground. There are other items in here, including the trail overlays for Longview and for Drace in 2022. We also have paver resetting at Longview for $15,000 and tuck pointing at Longview for $8,000, all in fiscal year 2022. Other items here and include the topping road improvements and Mason Bridge. I did not highlight out with certain ones to show the grant funding. You can see on the left-hand side that some do have the grant funding and the reimbursement, though, to the right-hand side of each of the items. And then finally, this is the stormwater piece of the Parks and Stormwater Fund. And that is all I have.
It's all right with you, Joanne. I think I would open it up to people if they might have questions for you or for Bob or myself.
That sounds good. Do I need to keep my screen up or shall I close it?
Why don't you keep it up right now in case somebody has a specific question? We might be able to pull that screen up.
Okay.
And I think Alderman Allen, did you want to say something? Or not, maybe.
Not right this moment, sir. Thank you. Oh, no, never mind. I already said it.
And since I'm only seeing a few, Alderman Holman, I did see your hand.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify, in the capital, coming out of the capital fund is an improvement of our conference room. Because I've heard that topic bounce around back and forth, whether it would be on the budget, would not be on the budget. So as of today, as it stands, improving the conference room is in the budget, correct?
It is in the budget for $60,000, yes.
And can we move funds out of capital fund into any fund as needed or required? Or is it only can be moved into specific funds? Or I could ask it this way, can we move funds out of capital fund into the general fund if needed?
Yes.
Joanne, no, I think if she wanted to move, the capital improvement sales tax has to be used for capital improvements. Correct? So we can't move it out of the capital fund.
Right.
Into
But I
the
guess
general.
I was thinking if there was something in the general fund that was a capital related item that we
Okay.
hadn't budgeted for in the capital fund, but you are correct. Otherwise, it needs to be funded in the capital fund and it should be a capital project.
Alderman Whitmire.
I think I'd further clarify, I think the code says capital projects or maintenance, capital items or maintenance. So, using it to maintain the roads or something might be allowable as well.
Correct, or a capital purchase, correct.
And
Mr. Mayor,
yes, sir. Go right ahead. I'm having, my screen only gives me a few faces at once. So
you only
Just-
see so many Hollywood squares and images.
yeah,
Right.
that
I
shows
guess
you-
as I corresponded with you and Bob and Joanne, if you step back and look at the numbers, I mean, first of all, Joanne, thank you very much for all the work that you've done and all of the staff. The document you sent was very helpful. Your follow-ups to me and so forth were very helpful. I sincerely appreciate it. As I shared with you, when I step back and look at this, we look at 2019 is the high watermark before COVID hit. You know, as far as the general fund is concerned, and that's where my biggest concern is general fund, because of the limitations of the other funds and that they're ring fenced. But, you know, our revenues are still going to be off by about $600,000 from that high water point. And during that period, we've increased our spending by over $500,000. So revenues are going down, expenses are going up. So we got a $1.1 million delta that's occurred since 2019. We can't control the taxes. You know, spending we have some control over, but what you know, the conversations I've had with other folks, it seems like, you know, there's not a lot of appetite for the severe changes that would need to occur to have a material impact on those expenses. So, you know, looking at this budget now, Ways and Means is, you know, suggesting we bump it even further, or I guess they did bump it further. It's now up even higher than what was given to us in a draft. You know, we're going to eat into our reserves further, as we all know. And to me, this sets us up to have a conversation around a tax increase next year. Because the erosion in the revenues that are occurring or that remain are things that I worry about, you know, their ability to return to normal within a short period of time. And these expenses that we've added are certainly not going away. Nobody's talking about reducing costs.
No, I mean, Alderman Whitmire, I agree with you on that. I think there perhaps are some small numbers in the budget that when we discuss that possibly could be cut out. But generally speaking, nothing, to your point, nothing material. Most of those things that we're getting, like supplies, cost more than they did. Everybody knows that in terms of inflation. Our coworkers, our colleagues who on the staff here, obviously, I think need a reasonable raise because of the fact that they're dealing with inflation in their everyday life. And yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, Frontenac and Ladue recently passed taxes. And that may be something, it is something that we're going to have to take a pretty serious look at going forward. It's unfortunate. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes to pay taxes. I don't. But you also cannot be like the federal government and chronically spend more than we take in. So at some point we've got to fix that. So I do believe there will have to be a very serious discussion in the near future about reinstituting the property tax that has been absent here since, I believe, 1996.
So I have one follow-up question then.
Sure.
In the spirit of cost control, is there any headcount increased across any of our departments in this budget?
I believe I'll let Mr. Shelton answer that, but I think the answer is unequivocally no.
No, we have not added any new staff.
And throw in the fact that the smaller audit that we paid for ourselves said we should. But I think at this point, we're going to hold the line on that. And maybe if we, on some areas, need an outside vendor for a while, as opposed to permanently increasing our staff, I think that's the approach we're going to take right now.
Mayor, if I could,
Sure.
briefly, if I could add to the tax discussion, because now is probably a good time, that the Ways and Means Committee did recommend that we present to the board the use tax. As you all know, the state legislature passed the Wayfair. So we will plan to develop some legislation for you all to consider beginning at your November 22nd meeting. That would be on the April ballot. We would need it to pass countywide in order for us to get the 1 cent general revenue, but it would be on, we would recommend that it would be on the ballot here, as similar other cities will be also putting it on the ballot in April.
And correct me if I'm wrong, that would not be a magic bullet. It would help, but it would not be a magic bullet that would correct our financial shortcomings.
Correct. Based on the estimates we're receiving, we won't know until if it is passed and those revenues begin to come in. But the estimates are not tremendous.
Alderman Allen.
Thank you. I would just like to further comment on the Ways and Means with the discussion of the staff increases. And we did have a review of what we in Town and Country have done in the past couple years as far as raises. We do merit-based raises. And there is a lot of concern. And looking back again, what I think Mayor, you said, commented on what the management partners talked about us as far as staff. And that's something I think most of us have recognized for years, that we have a very lean staff. I think Ways and Means recognize the quality of the people we have and the efficiency of retaining the good staff we have, as opposed to losing staff, and recognizing that there are, I mean, this was a full endorsement of Ways and Means that we do consider this additional salary increase over the 1%. So we have a very conservative Ways and Means Commission, but they wholeheartedly supported that. Thank you.
I would concur with that. And I mean, and there's data presented that, you know, De Pere's doing 5%. So we, at the 3% level, we are definitely not an outlier.
Yeah, we're not leading the pack as far as salaries.
Alderman Even, sorry, I've been flipping back and forth, so I got you there. Go right ahead.
Okay, I was being patient.
Thank you.
As far as we've talked about sponsorships for these events such as Fire and Ice and Turkey Trot and so on, is there a reflection of the sponsorship in our revenue, or how do we account for that if we're going to proceed trying to get sponsors for those events?
I'll let you take that.
I'll jump in. I believe Joanne does have revenue assumptions. Again, those are all estimates, but based on history, there would be a revenue amount for sponsorships.
So do we know what that number is? If we're looking to cover the entire cost, do we know what the entire cost of those events are, so we can look at what that estimate number is?
Yes, we do have individual budgets per event. So we would know how much we would be looking for in a sponsorship. Similar to other smaller items such as a dedication tree or a bench or those types of things. We have an amount that we request in a sponsorship.
Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, or Joanne. For all three events, the total sponsorship, if we had $50,000 in sponsorships, I think that would cover all three events. Or is that too low?
I was thinking between 50 and 60, so you're right in the ballpark.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I would also like to echo my thanks to Joanne for all the work she's put in on this. This was a lot of work. Alderman Weezahan.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to say the same thing about the everything that Joanne sent out. It's been really helpful. I did have a question pertaining to the two trails at Longview and Drace. I brought it up a few times this year. It's been on the budget since 2020. I'm understanding the COVID situation last year and putting everything on hold. I just wanted to get clarification that if this was the right amount, that we felt confident that it was budgeted correctly to move forward with it in 22. Again, being on the 2020 budget, it was, some of these projects were noticed, obviously, at least in 2019, and I just want to make sure that we felt confident that we'd be able to move forward with them.
Yes, Alderman, we definitely feel confident with these numbers. Michael Zeltman has taken a close look. We also will be doing some pre-planning on these per the management partner's recommendation on our public works project. So we feel very confident with these.
Thank you.
And probably not a smart idea to bring up, but I would like maybe Ryan Spencer or Mike Zeltman to comment on this. What happens if we don't spend $750,000 doing a stormwater project in that one subdivision? What kind of seismic earthquake would that cause?
Well, it can always be delayed a year. This particular project, if I recall, I was told that a dog got stuck in the mud, and then a child went out to get the dog, and he got stuck in the mud. And then the firefighter went out to get the child, and he got stuck in the mud too. So it is a bit of a safety hazard.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not suggesting we do it. I just was kind of curious.
I understand, sir, that 750 is a lot, though.
Okay, all right. And I think that I see another hand up. If I missed it, if somebody has something else to add, just go right ahead. I'm having like screen issues a little bit. If not, wanted to thank Joanne for that. And then just since we got a few minutes, Alderman Allen, do you have something to say?
I just wanted to make a comment, and Bob and I talked about this earlier, and I don't know if this is a good time to bring it up, but the deer management is currently in this budget. And it seems like a couple years ago, it was determined that is this a good time to comment on it, Bob?
Fine with me.
Okay, what, would you go ahead and explain it with the timing and everything if we're going to proceed?
Right. So if the board is, if you have a direction, it is helpful to know, just because we would start with the baiting. They would actually do the deer management in January. So we would need to secure some sites and begin the baiting and those types of things. So if we end up at our December meeting, it begins to make the schedule kind of tight. So if the board does have any direction, as we've talked about, it would be helpful for the staff to know.
And we need to order stuff to bait and everything.
Well, correct. And get White Buffalo under contract. Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just so we don't miss our timing on if we're going to do that.
Thank you.
Relative to our regular meeting, I was wondering, I was just going to ask if there are any major sticking points before the regular meeting.
It's not a major sticking point, but what I'm thinking about right now is one, from what I understand, branch chipping is one of the items that fell off. I think of the initial proposed budget. I'm not sure if anything else fell off. So if I could have a list of that, that would be helpful. But I'm just wondering if there is some opportunity to add branch chipping back on. It is probably our number one request out of Ward 1, and I'm quite confident it varies by ward, but we serviced, well over 500 households 2 years ago when we provided the service. And so as I continue to work through the budget and think about that, I'll be circling back with Mr. Shelton on that.
I think that's reasonable. I would hope that at our discussion, what we do with the conference room, what we do with deer, what we do with branch. I mean, I hope we have a fairly lively discussion and about what we have to have and what we don't have to have. So I'm I'm all for that. I mean, I will be honest, my understanding, if I'm correct, is the branch chipping and pickup is used by somewhere between 9 and 10% of our population as a whole. So it has not been super well embraced. Obviously, maybe in some wards it's different than others, but my understanding is that we're at about 9 or 10% of our population takes advantage of it. So it's kind of one of the reasons I wasn't overwhelmingly in favor of it. If 90% of the folks here aren't taking advantage of it.
I
But-
think it's 15%. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think it's 15% in over 500 households. But yeah,
Okay, well, that's a substantial number, but again, I think I look forward to those kind of discussions for sure.
Mhm. So on that note, do you anticipate any meetings live before the end of the year, or do you think we will continue Zoom for the duration of 2021?
That's a good question, because I was actually talking with folks tonight and I was going to send out, and we can talk about it right now for a second. I was going to send out an email to the Board of Aldermen tomorrow saying, hey, our COVID numbers are coming down. I would personally much prefer live interaction with people. Here's the caveat that if we can live with it, okay. If we cannot, then we'll stay in Zoom. But the caveat is that my hope is that in the very near future, the county health department says, hey, no more indoor mask mandates. But right now that's in place. And my take on that is that we should follow the mandate, the directions of the county health department. And so therefore, we would meet in person, we would wear masks. When you talk, you didn't have to wear a mask, because I think at least we have 2 board members who have difficulty hearing, so that anytime you're actually speaking or addressing, you could take your mask off. But otherwise, we would wear a mask while we're here until that is lifted, which I hope will be in the very near future. And if we're all good with that, great. If not, if that's like, I can't live with that, then I think we'll stay in Zoom meetings. And if you want to just send me an email or whatever, and let me know your feelings on that. If we can live with that kind of a scenario, great. If not, we'll stay in Zoom. And my thought would be, because our city clerk has done a great job of getting set up for our next November meeting. To switch then would be difficult. So if we go back in person, it would be the first meeting in December and remain in December going forward. And I have some remote hope that before the first meeting in December, the mask mandate may be lifted.
So would you like feedback, or you want that?
I don't need feedback unless you're violently opposed to that approach. If it's like, hey, this is something I just can't live with, let me know. I didn't, violently is a little over the top, but if you're opposed to that, just let me know. And then we'll, because I want everybody to be comfortable. I want everybody to be engaged. And that's the way I would like to go. And again, I'm like the rest of the world. I really don't like wearing the mask. I mean, I do it every day at work for hours at a time, and you do it, but not a big fan of it. And as soon as that is dropped, I'm on board with it. But I feel as leaders of the community, I don't think we can pick and choose which rules and things from the public health department we should or shouldn't follow. And I know a lot of people disagree with me on that, and I respect that. What I like about Town and Country is you can respect other people's opinions without becoming bent out of shape completely. But yeah, if you're good with it, I don't need to hear from you. If it's like, hey, I don't think I can live with that, let me know. And then I think we'll continue with Zoom. But again, that's how I look forward to it going forward. Alderman Allen, did you have something else?
Yes. So where we are right now, going back to Alderman Holman's question. So we have, this budget would be first read on the 22nd of November, is that correct? And then second read on December 13th.
That is correct.
So if there would be a get together, a way to get in the weeds, so to speak, it would need to be before November 22nd? Or between those,
22nd and the next reading, I would think.
yes.
Alderman Whitmire.
The other option would be to explore the idea of opening debate after that matter is first read, with the condition that it's going to be continued to the next meeting.
Right, exactly. If we're good, got about 5 minutes to 7. Why don't we sign off and meet in 5 minutes?